Greetings and welcome to In-Depth and Dike Rostant. Let My Vibes Be One With You, Mother Earth is a prayer intoned by Lutalo Masimba, also known as Brother Resistance. Now, June 5 is the day that World Environment Day is observed, and it is a beautiful opportunity to speak about care for creation, the Reforestation and Beautification Project. One such place is taking place is at the Mount St. Benedict. We speak with coordinator Maria Samad. Hello, ma'am, how you do?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Definitely our pleasure. I say our pleasure. But let's go from the ground up and we're starting off with some Latin, please. Laudato Si. What was that? Break it down for us.
Laudato Si is an encyclica of the Catholic Church, meaning a letter or paper that was done by Pope Francis, the late Pope Francis, in 2015, to create a relationship to the environment issues that were going on in the world. And he wanted to sensitize everyone, not just Catholics, to the care of creation. And that word creation was a very wide encompassing word to include everything, not just the trees, but the animals, us as human beings, everything that God has created. And so he used Laudato Si, and he also piggybacked that off of St. Francis of Assisi, the Canticle of Creation. And that's a prayer that St. Francis said, Mother Earth, Mother Sun, Mother Moon. So he introduced that, hoping that the Catholic body and the wider body would stop and take note of how we are treating the creation that God gave to us. And that's it basically. We normally think about it as trees only, but it really encompasses the trees, the poor, all of us, because we are interconnected and interrelated. And when one is affected, the other gets affected.
And the hymn goes, whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me, speaking at
That's
that
correct.
level of connection. But sometimes
Yes.
sometimes it's easy to say, but this thing is so big, it's so vast. What difference can I make when you look at how general it can be? But I want to ask, how do you start to pare it down and say, okay, well, I, I may not be able to do everything, but let me do something. And with that, I want to ask about the congregation of the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother. How do they fit in?
Great. The Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother is part of the Franciscan Institute. Well, sorry, the Franciscan body. And that is coming out of St. Francis. So they are the female version of the Franciscan movement. And they have in Trinidad a body, an organization called the Franciscan Institute, which has been here for quite a number of years, doing their work in this same area, addressing the needs of the people with respect to families and children with respect to care for their social needs, particularly in the area of counseling. They also do work with the poor, where bags are provided on a monthly basis to the people who are in need of assistance. They are involved in human trafficking. So a lot of training is done and teaching on human trafficking, identifying what it entails, and benches were placed in parishes throughout the country, sensitizing people onto the numbers to call, how to be alerted to human trafficking. And so that the Institute really is a body that is trying to embrace and seeking to embrace that call for the care of creation under those various ambits. Coming out of that Laudato Si teaching, there was a thrust to have something called the season of creation, particularly in Catholic schools. And it has been done for the last 5 years, where we are working with children to sensitize them on as to what creation is and how their role is. So we started with the little people. If they got to know and they are involved, they also get mommy and daddy involved, because I have been part of the judging. And when we see those projects, we know it's not the kids alone doing it. So all these schools take part as much as we get them involved or they want to, because it takes a lot of effort out of the principal and the teachers and the parents. And the children are allowed to take part at different levels, be it art, be it poetry, be it dance, be it a skit, anything that they can use based on the annual theme to reflect, their role in creation. So that season of creation champion has been going on in the schools, and there's a judging, but it's not a competition, a judging to acknowledge the talent, and there's an annual celebration. This year, we took a different angle, and we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Laudato Si and the 800th anniversary of the Canticle of Creation. So it's a double whammy this year, and we thought to do it, not have a challenge again, but get the children a little more involved in an intense way. And there's a committee with the Canticle Creation, where there's a booklet and different materials for the children to internalize the Canticle of Creation and come out with creative ideas. And the second project is the one I am involved in, which is the reforestation part of St. Benedict. So they all fall under the two celebrations this year.
Okay, and even before we get into the reforestation project, two things. One, let me just add some nuance. You said the sisters are involved in mitigating against human trafficking, as opposed to say they're involved in human trafficking, right?
Yes, yes. So they work closely with the governmental agencies, and they provide training to groups to understand how to identify if a child is, in the process of being trafficked, the signals that can be made. They sensitize the parishes by putting the benches there that it is real, it is here, it is happening. So sessions are done, yes. So they assist with that. And that's in Trinidad, but in an international way, they're also involved in it in a bigger way, actually providing assistance to people who have been involved in human trafficking, have been the victims of human trafficking.
And I think that's important in two ways, because sometimes we can say, okay, well, dealing with that is the role of police officers, or dealing with that is the role of lawyers, or dealing with that is the role of some other group, as opposed to me. I don't have any part to play in that. So in terms of like having those visual cues and realizing, okay, well, this is something that I need to look for in whatever space I occupy is very important. But looking at the reforestation project,
Yes.
it seems as though there are more than one area being tackled. But I want to ask, why the Abbey? Why
Right.
Mount Benedict?
Right. So that is a collaboration between the sisters, the Benedictine monastery, and the seminarian, the seminary of in Trinidad and Tobago, which is the seminary where all the seminarians are trained. And the intention of bringing these three together was actually Benedict and Francis were friends in the real world. So it was really bringing back that tradition. But St. Benedict offers a green space that is very sacred to not only just the Catholic Church, but it is a pilgrim center. Everybody goes up there. It's also a lot of greenery there to protect and enhance. And so the sisters felt that that was a good project to initiate because there are lots of areas there that were damaged by bushfires that needed to be replanted. I'm not saying the monastery is not doing it, but to assist them and to also add some beautification to the key points and soil conservation. But the connectivity of that to the creation aspect is if we ensure that the forestry area is preserved, flooding is mitigated, and therefore the people in the underlying villages will not be affected as far as Tunapuna, because when we cut the hills down or trees are gone, the waters gush down faster than they should. So it's a ball of things that are happening, not just the space there, but protecting people who could be impacted by resulting flooding. And of course, we know the poor are affected the most, people who can't afford to replace. So it's trying to achieve that too at the same time.
I like the fact that you talk about is more than just a pretty thing. I also
Yes.
appreciate the fact that you speak to the fact that there is a pilgrimage center Because very recently I was speaking with Dr. Jerome Tillotson, and I mentioned that it feels sometimes as though Mountain Benedict is treated more like an ashram. So as opposed to a space that is, I guess, predominantly Catholic. But but we continue the conversation when we come back, because I don't want to get any answers from you that I'll have to squeeze, because we'll have a big half and a small half. So we're speaking with Coordinator Maria Samad. We're looking at Care for Creation, Reforestation and Beautification Collaborative Project. Is taking place at Mount St. Benedict and the seminary. We'll also see where else is taking place, but we do that when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are having a conversation about Care for Creation, looking at it on the 800th anniversary celebration of the Canticle of St. Francis, Laudato Si. We set the premise and had the context, doing so with Coordinator Maria Samad. And I like the fact that you talk about, yes, there's the visual aspect to replanting these trees that were lost to bushfires at Mount St. Benedict. But there's so much more than that. There is literally a ripple effect. And many times when people have to deal with adverse situations, the poor feel it to a greater degree than people who pocket hole a little bit. But how did you decide to go about saying, okay, well, we're going to replant here. What is the rationale behind what is being planted? I think I even saw an image of the abbot pulling the hand.
Yes, yes.
So take me through that process, thanks.
Okay, Sister Julie Marie Peters, who is the director of the Franciscan Institute, who's actually based in Rome, but is very active here because of online connectivity. It was her project to come up with that site. I believe it's part of her relationship with them too over time, when she was in Trinidad. So in discussing what can we do, she thought about St. Benedict, and at the same time involving the seminarians in the seminary. So it fitted nicely with what the project suited the celebration, the monastery, the green space, and the seminarians at the same time. And the intention was to involve, and still is, to involve all the schools in the area nearby, as far as Aruka and as far as St. Joseph, and the parishes, and anybody, pilgrims who attend church there, who visit, to take part in that planting exercise. So what we did is we identified, in conjunction with the abbot, areas that he needed to have trees replanted, and those you would imagine would be the big trees, like the pui trees, mahoganies, and the Canadian pine that we see at the top of the monastery. And then we looked at some other areas that we felt, listen, we need to make this space say wow to us too when we come up, to look really nice. And that would be at the base, once you enter from the village, where there's a statue of Our Lady. And then as you take the deep turn into the monastery. And we started with an easy one, which was the car park, where there were bougainvilleas planted, and some were missing. It was obvious some were missing. And that's when you saw the abbot pulling the hoe. That happened on May the 24th. And it was a start to encourage people to get involved, because as you would imagine, later on the terrain will get a little challenging for some of us. So we started there, and we replanted 8 bougainvilleas there. It was a beautiful experience. We got Fatima RC Primary School involved, St. Joseph Convent Environment, St. Joseph Environment Club involved. We had pilgrims who worshiped there on a Sunday morning come and plant a tree. We had the sisters who came in from Grenada to plant a tree. We had parishioners from Aruka planting the tree. So we had children planting, adults, everybody was engaged in planting on that day. And that was the easiest part of the exercise, but that's to start us off. And yes, we told the abbot, at least look as if you did it, And he informed me that he actually planted one of the older ones as a novice. So there you have it, but he's very excited about the project, as Sister Julie Marie is, and Father Jason Boatswain from the seminary, who also planted a tree.
No, you're
Him
telling
and
me
his
that people came from outside of Trinidad and Tobago to plant at the seminary or at Mount St. Madeleine?
The sisters were based in Grenada, and they came in there was a mass in the morning to start off the Canticle Creation Project. And that was with Father Michael Trestriel. That was a beautiful ceremony in Belmont with children again involved. And then the afternoon, we had the opening ceremony for the planting of the trees with a small service, and singing all the appropriate songs and drawing us to the attention of what Laudato Si was and what we're trying to achieve. So we have 5 formal planting days, and it culminates with the anniversary of the Canticle on October the 4th. So we're going to plant every month from June, we have a date, August, September, and then October. We take a rest for July because we know what happens in July. Yeah.
I want you to let me know where people can get more information. I also
Yes.
want you to speak to the significance of this kind of intergenerational engagement in terms of the sisters coming in, people who would have made pilgrimage to the space, as well as the inclusion of those schools and the different groupings from the school, because people have environmental projects and this and that and the other. So those 2 things, thank you. In however you want to deal with them.
Okay, the sisters coming in would have been the superior from Grenada for the Caribbean, and another one who is the principal of a school in Grenada, added with sisters who were here. So there are sisters who are presently here. They live in Chagona. So they represented, I guess, the leadership in the absence of Sister Julie, who's in Rome right now. And so they had, their part was to really demonstrate the commitment of the Franciscan Institute. And they got involved. They planted, they did a planting. I can send you photos. We have photos of them. And the intergenerational thing is important because we need to also help the children to understand their role in it. And, when we get everybody involved from the children level, we know the parents are being taught at the same time. As a parent, you will know that. Because they get involved in the projects, they internalize the material with the children. So that intergenerational thing is planting a seed, no pun intended, but it's really planting the philosophy in the minds of the children. So in coming up, they would have an appreciation for and a respect for the earth and themselves as part of God's creation. I didn't mention earlier on, but there's the program also appeals to the parishes in the Catholic parishes in Trinidad and Tobago. And so we had somebody from Aruca parish, but it's something that we are working on to get the parishes more involved. But yes, the parishes are also invited, and they do take part every year in the season of creation.
Getting information, how do people get information?
Getting information, the Franciscan Institute has an office in Port of Spain on Abercrombie Street. There's a number you can call to get more information from them, or I can be reached at 315-4695.
Right,
I'm sure you could.
And I'm seeing that the Franciscan Institute is 734-7620.
Excellent, and that's also a WhatsApp number, yes.
You have to be Catholic to plant?
No, you don't have to be Catholic to plant. Everybody's invited, but because of limited resources, we are focusing and strengthening where we are so we could go out eventually. I do ask that question from time to time. How about inviting the government schools? But part of the interesting part of monitoring the program or getting it out there is the reach. We do it through the Catholic board, through the bodies that could help us do it. Whereas to go to the government schools, we'll have to go to the government and it's so important to have a link in the schools that participate every year in big numbers. There's one light in there, one teacher who's glowing, and she makes it happen. So we keep trying to get those links, get those people who we can work with every year from year to year.
Lastly, I hear talk about resources limited. What kind of resources, if you if people are listening, looking, and have, what kind of resources you're looking for?
Right now, we need manpower. We've taken care of the plants aspect, but we'd always welcome donations. But we need manpower to come out on the planting days and be part of the project, not just to do it, but to experience what it means to be part of creation and to put back. So we're asking people to come out, experience what Laudato Si is about by mingling with us, talking with us, and planting, because in doing it, you will become you get a better realization of what's in front, what Pope Francis was saying to us, and what little you can do, each of us as an individual, to make a difference. Every tree, as you know, will add to the carbon footprint. That's oxygen. So if we keep planting those trees and we keep encouraging people to plant, then we are making a start. At both ceremonies, we gave out seedlings to people that they could go home and plant their own kitchen garden plant, tomato, melon, whatever it was. So we are encouraging that kind of mentality and hope it will grow on people, that it will continue to happen over and over.
I'm sure the Shore Foundation will be very happy to hear about this, because this is something that they do on a very regular basis. But I call some people sometimes and I tell them that I have 4 grannies. And one of the most cherished memories that I have with one of those grannies is getting seeds and stuff ready for Corpus Christi, which is coming,
yes.
and planting on Corpus Christi. So this is another reason I'm grateful that we were able to have this conversation now. Thank you very much, Maria Samad, Coordinator, Care for Creation, Reforestation and Beautification Project taking place. And on behalf of the entire crew at TTT, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining.